Welcome to Avocation X, episode number 38. It is time for a newsworthy crisis broadcast. Welcoming you, or was welcoming you, was Zeus. And he was about to be my co-anchor for this episode. It seems that he has better things to do at the moment. So, a special thanks and hello to all you beautiful thinking people out there. But before we continue, please help me and Zeus and the others in our cause by hitting the like button and subscribing for future content. Become a member and crush that bell while you're at it so you miss nothing going forward. Our disclaimer: this channel is opinion, but it is based on facts. Your questions will be answered if you're a subscribed member of the channel. However, suggestions are welcome, including critical analysis. So the topics that I'm going to tackle here and now: US debt, pandemic, UK debt history, checks are necessary. So let me unpack this now. Around the time of World War II, the UK had been amassing tons of debt. They needed to acquire this debt in order to accomplish the goals that were set in front of them. They had no assurances that they were going to have help from US or Canada. So they continued to borrow money, and a lot of that from the United States of America and from Canada both. That money, of course, can be a useful tool. However, when your debt begins to equal a huge amount of your GDP, you're getting close to the point of no return. Well, obviously, the UK did not go to that point. But if you think about the consequences of that debt, they only just recently paid that debt off. Only recently. Debt is not that great when you accumulate it to that point where your whole economy is held hostage for decades and decades in the attempt of getting back on top. So, let's move on. There's the US debt. In 2008, the national debt had not been kept low enough to reduce the deficit. Now, of course, we know the deficit is the payments you make, which is mostly interest, on the loans that you have procured. So the deficit had been rising for years, despite the claim that the Republican Party have a stance of being fiscally responsible. And if you look over time and history, you'll find that, for the most part, when Republicans ruled the roost, the deficit had been increased exponentially. And then, once the Democrats win the election, they start to blame the Democrats for not being fiscally responsible. But if you look back over the history, you'll find it's kind of an opposite. It's a projection, right? It's like I'm a spender, and all I do is spend, and all of a sudden I give my finances over to you and I say, why am I not in a positive territory? What are you doing here? You're spending all my money. Despite your claims that I had already run up that debt and that you're just doing your best to bring it down, I will continue to admonish you for the horrible job you're doing with my debt, or debt to GDP ratio. So when we look at this in a nutshell, we have to say the previous administration, which is the Obama administration, had been doing quite a bit to reduce that debt. The deficit was going down. So that means our payments out on the debt were decreasing in compared to our GDP, which means we were getting in a positive territory. We're getting to a place where we can actually start to live comfortably in our own skin. And by our own skin, I mean your own skin. I'm in Canada. So I mean, I am affected by everything that goes on in the US of A, but not to the same degree that you people have been affected. Now, it's long been known that Obama didn't do very, very well for the poor and for the other. But he did do some things that were actually an improvement over where they were. So by reducing the deficit, which means they can spend more on social programs and help people to move ahead in the future of their aspirations. In comes the next administration and huge tax breaks for the wealthy and corporate elites. And the deficit blooms to the largest it has ever been in its history. In its history. This is no small feat, folks. In order to spend that much money, it's quite an accomplishment. And while he's accomplishing these things, he also reduced the bank account that was being used to pay down the deficit and the debt. If you give trillions of dollars to the elite and the corporate entities, you don't have those trillions to pay down your debt. So where do you get it from? You squeeze it from those people beneath who are already struggling to make ends meet. So if you're wondering why you're not doing so great, if you feel like you're being tightly squeezed, even though you're looking at the stock market and saying, whoa, look at the stock market, it's moving up, do you feel any difference in your standard of living? That's your test. So, here's the result now. The IMF and World Bank will be calling off their payments to most of the countries around the world that have been affected by the super bad cold illness. But don't be fooled by those checks, folks. They're not free. They'll be dispersed to businesses and the population at large. And they will be coming at a major cost of increased indebtedness to the world bodies. This most certainly will be the worst indebtedness the world has ever seen. Your grandchildren, my grandchildren, will be paying for this debt probably their entire lives. And perhaps even past that. This will be a huge transfer of wealth from each and every country infected over to the World Bank and IMF. When the numbers are all in, people will understand that they may have had a little more to fear from the indebtedness that will come from this than the actual super bad cold illness itself. Certain individuals have blamed Barack Obama for the lack of preparedness to this pandemic. But when you look at the actual facts, from President Obama's seat as a freshman senator, his views on pandemic have seemed quite consistent. Furthering his charge in 2014 for a budget that would increase the preparedness of the USA for an impending arrival of an airborne pandemic. Let me clarify something. Debt can sometimes be a powerful tool, except when you pass the mark of approximately 65% of your GDP as debt. That is like balancing on the edge of a cliff with no safety net, no safety line, and depending on the strength of your country, that type of debt could spell the end of everything you hold dear. So you may think, some of you may think, well, he's doing a great job with the economy. You haven't looked at the economy to see what that real measure is, have you? Open up your wallet. Take a look what's inside. Take a look at your credit card statements. How do they look? Have you been able to make some extra payments on your mortgage? Maybe pay down your car loans a little bit more lately? How about when you see your electric bill and your gas bill and your gasoline bill? Does it still make you cringe, or are you just carefree, no problem, just pay it off? That's the measure of your economy. It's how it affects each and every individual in a country. Not just the 1%, not just the big investors who are making billions of dollars every year. Do your research, folks. Look a little closer at what's going on around you before it swallows you. So, we do know that he did all he could in his power to increase a budget that would keep America in a preparedness that would be able to respond to anything that could come unexpectedly in the future. He actually predicted 5 to 10 years, and seems like he's really right on the money. Was that prophetic? Was it common sense? Either way, the budget wasn't passed in his favor. And I can almost guess as to who blocked that budget. I don't think, now again, I could be wrong. Somebody will have to bring me some information, and please do. Point me in the right direction. I don't believe the Democrats blocked his bill. I believe that if it was up to the Democrats, they would have increased the budget for pandemic preparedness. And at this point here, Donald J. Trump would actually be in good stead and have a good fund to draw from instantly and make sure that everything was ready to go. So, I sincerely hope that there is a path for everybody out of this dilemma. But all I can say is, enjoy your hay at this moment, but realize there could be famine on the other side of the hill. So please do leave your respectful comments and suggestions in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for growing content, become a member, and crush that bell while you're at it. Don't miss another episode going forward. Once again, folks, I must say, never give up and never give in. And remember, keep an open mind, because knowledge is power. So do your research and be powerful. Until next time, thank you for spending time with us here on this channel, and we hope to see you regularly and often. Take care.